Hey, Grandma.
Hey, Grandma. Happy birthday.
Sorry Simone and I couldn't make it up, but we at least wanted to say hey and share a couple of our really good memories that we have with you. So I guess I'll lead off. Probably my favorite memory with Grandma. This is with Grandma and Grandpa. And forgive me if Mike is using this instance as well, because he may very well be. But when I was probably, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13, Grandma and Grandpa took Mike and I on an RV trip to Ohio for like 2 or 3 days, and we went to the Air Force Museum in Ohio and had a great time. Mike and I just nerded out all over the Air Force Museum, and but while we were there, you know, we're staying in the RV and camping out, and I remember that was the first time I had ever heard Grandma use a word that I didn't think grandmothers knew. I won't go into detail because there may be young ones watching, but it definitely caught me off guard, and you know, and I look back on that trip, you know, very fondly. So, you know, Grandma, happy birthday, and yeah, thank you for taking us on that trip.
I have a couple of good memories. One would be the ceramic goose that she had on the front steps of their house, and she always let me dress it because the goose had like a whole wardrobe. So I always got to dress the goose up in whatever outfit that I wanted, and I thought that was so awesome. And then another memory would probably be when we would come and visit and stay for several days at a time. We would always go for rides in the car. Sometimes just to drive around like in the country. Sometimes it would be after a storm to see if there were any trees down or any flooding or anything like that. But I always thought that was really fun.
So probably Grandma's favorite story to tell is when, at least when in regards to us, is when her and Grandpa came down and watched us for, you know, a couple of days or a week or something like that, when you know, Dad and Mom were out of town, and Mal and I guess decided, you know, and we're probably, you know, 6 and 4 at the time, we decided we wanted to go to Dunkin' Donuts. Well, you know, 6 and a 4-year-old typically are not very good at navigating. So, and these are, you know, the days before GPSs and all that stuff. So Grandma and Grandpa asked us, well, where's Dunkin' Donuts? And I told them the only landmark I could think of was the big cowboy hat. Well, the big cowboy hat was in Arby's that was right next door to Dunkin' Donuts. So, you know, I'll be darned if we didn't drive around Durham, North Carolina for about an hour and a half until eventually we found the big cowboy hat and the Dunkin' Donuts right next to it. But yeah, that's I remember that. I know Grandma does, because she like, you know, she loves that story.
That's funny. Well, happy birthday, Grandma. We love you.
Love you.
So I have 2 stories that I want to tell. The first one is from when Mike and I were probably first married, and we had both had churches that were in North Manchester, and then sometimes we would ride with Grandma and Grandpa and EE out to Warsaw so that we could go eat there at this place called, no, the Boathouse, but sometimes we just go to random places, Hacienda or something. But anyway, and on the way, when you'd first start out, Grandma would get kind of frustrated because Grandpa would be going a little slow, and she'd say, oh, can't we go just a little faster, Dawn? And then as we drove on, maybe 5-10 minutes later, you could kind of see the layers of patience wearing down until suddenly she would go, Dawn, poop or get off the pot. Although she didn't say poop, but I'm not going to say what she was saying because my kid's right over there. And that just kind of showed me the fierce determination and passion she had. And the other thing that I remember about Grandma, one of my favorite things about Grandma is anytime it's like the end of our gatherings together, you go up and I'll give her a hug, and she gives these kind of strong, wonderful, enveloping hugs. And she'll lean up and whisper something into your ear, whether it's I love you or thank you so much for coming, or we're so happy to have you as a part of our family. It's always something that makes you feel so loved and cared for from the top of your head to the tip of your toes. So thanks, Grandma.
Anybody who spent any amount of time at Grandma's house knows that food is pretty plentiful. As she says, if you go hungry, it's your own fault. I spent a period of time there following college myself, and during that time, I have here kind of a memento from that time. This is a little basket with a rabbit, presumably an Easter bunny on it, and it was always filled with jelly beans. And no matter how hard I tried to get the jelly beans out of there and put them somewhere, like in my mouth, lo and behold, I'd turn around the next day and there'd be more jelly beans that rabbit brought back. Grandma, just so you notice, it's running a little low today. So anyway, at their house every night from Mondays through Fridays, the 7 to 8 o'clock time slot was always taken up on CBS, or maybe it was NBC. CBS with first Wheel and then Jeopardy, and usually followed by some kind of basketball game if it was in the winter time. And I remember one time I had left the living room and walked towards the kitchen, and I think I must have hesitated for a second or something, because Grandma calls out to me and says, "Are you hungry?" And I look at her, I say, "No, I'm not hungry." And she's like, "Well, you were looking pretty longingly at the refrigerator." Just goes to speak to her understanding that the feeding of the body and the feeding of the soul are not mutually exclusive. So happy great birthday to you, Grandma.
Yes, happy birthday, and we love you so much.
Hi Grandma, it's Susan.
And Sean.
And we wanted to share a few memories and thoughts with you for your 90th birthday. I really loved getting to spend time with you, especially on my own, there at the house in North Manchester. I love the way that you would describe all of the goings on in the neighborhood around you, whether you're talking about the neighbor's landscaping or, you know, when the blue heron was going to return. And I also loved the fact that you had an outfit for every day or every hour that I was there to dress up the goose on your front porch. But I also have been thinking about how much I really appreciate your support for, you know, all of your kids' endeavors, and even for me, you came to every recital you could make it out to, including traveling all the way to Indianola, Iowa for my senior recital at Simpson. And Sean, when did you first meet Grandma?
I first met Grandma at your sister's wedding rehearsal. She was seated there in the back, and I was seated there in the back with her. And after being introduced, Grandma, you said not only did you have so many grandchildren, but you were the mother of 7 children. And then you reassured me that you weren't Catholic. You all were just poor, and that was cheaper than a movie. And I knew right then and there that you and I were going to be great friends. We shared a sense of humor. I've been impressed with how tough you are, being able to see you and how well you've recovered after some of your falls, and also inspired by how much you love your grandchildren and even us in-laws. We've always felt welcome, we've always felt at home. We knew that we were loved, and we were certainly well fed. Thank you, Grandma. We love you. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Grandma. I love you very, very much. And as I was thinking about this project and stories to tell, I was also moving, and many things came up for me. One of the things that I remember is BJ, the big gray fluffy cat that kept trying to get outside. I now currently have a gray fluffy cat that likes to try to get outside, and how often we'd have to try to fight him for the door. And I remember your love of animals from that. I also remember very clearly your den of iniquity, and all of the things that you kept in there, and the glorious, mysterious kind of mess that it was. I loved being in there, and all of the various projects that came out of that, the doll clothes and all of that, were very precious. As I was moving this week into moving my craft room stuff, I was remembering that I inherited much of your Den of Iniquity, which I'm very grateful for. And I found this, which is something that I made a long time ago. But when I got your Den of Iniquity things, one of the things I was given was this, which you made, I think, a long time ago. And they have been sitting together on my dresser for quite a while. I really value the way that you passed that on to me, to us. You also passed on several other things. Your love of reading, you can see the books behind me, and your love of reading just for the fun of it. And also your storytelling. You keep our history very well, and help us remember who we are collectively as a family. And I love that you tell some of the stories over and over again, such that we can say the one about Mike and the grapes, and everybody knows what we're talking about, or the one about John and the car, or the one about the boys and the M&Ms in the nose. All of those stories, the ways that you have told those and reminded us of where we come from. I appreciate that, and these are things that I try to incorporate into my life, and I am so grateful to you for passing those on to me. I love you bunches. Take care.
So as anyone will know, one of my fondest memories of visiting Grandma, you'll always get a story about Fern Baldwin. I'm not quite sure exactly who Fern Baldwin is, but you're gonna get one. So, you know, that's one thing I'll never forget is Fern Baldwin, number one. Number two, just being serious. No, we would leave your house on the holidays. We'd leave with both pockets stuffed to the brim of peanut M&Ms that we didn't put there. I'm told it might have been Grandma. I don't know. You know, I'm not going to confirm nor deny. But it could have been Grandma who did that. So that was a fond memory growing up. And then, I don't know, I just remember being in your old house and your cat at the old house. And I remember when I was younger throwing a ball around the house. My mom told me to knock it off. And of course I did not knock it off. And what I did knock was a Fenton Ware bird off of a shelf, an end table, something like that. And of course it broke. So my mom being my mom, you know, of course we had to make amends, and I apologize, but you know, we need to go find a replacement. So we looked and looked and looked and could not find another Fenton Ware bird, so we finally settled on a Fenton Ware cat, which I happen to have right here. This is lovingly known as the Cat of Shame in our house. It's a beautiful piece, highly prized in this household. Thanks for passing that on to us, Grandma. We will cherish it and remember you always. But anyway, when I brought the cat back to Grandma, and I was in tears and apologetic, and she said, you know, I don't care. I love you, and you know, gave me a big hug and kiss, and just made me feel better. So anyway, thank you.
And speaking of hugs, that's one thing that I've always really appreciated about you, Grandma. I remember the first time I was, you know, going to meet the Stones, and you know, I was just the girlfriend at that point, and really nervous because I wanted to make a good impression, and you know, I thought I might want to marry this guy, so you know, felt like I was under a lot of pressure. And I remember just, you know, walking in, and you just opened your arms and gave me a great big bear hug and said hello, and it just made me feel so welcome and loved, and you know, the hugs haven't stopped, and I just love those.
And another way that, Grandma, you were super supportive. So when Mary and I made the decision for me to quit work and take the work home and raise Lucy and Lena full time, I have to admit it was one of those things where I wasn't looking forward to telling everybody, because you know everyone's going to have an opinion and everyone's going to have a judgment whether they tell it to you or not. And you know, I know that some of the older generations, it was a huge thing putting, going through the Depression or putting food on the table, providing for your family. And so, what would that be like, especially as a man? So I have to admit, I wasn't eager to spread the news to my grandparents, but hey, Grandma, you were super supportive and just said, Matthew, I'm so proud of what you're doing with your girls. So that meant a lot.
Thank
so.
you.
So anyway, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
We love you, Grandma.
Hi, Grandma. I want to say probably the first memory of Grandma that comes to mind is Wheel of Fortune at 7 o'clock, and then followed by Jeopardy at 7:30. And 8 o'clock, it was time to play solitaire on the computer until it was bedtime. And I love the predictability of that for those 2 summers that I lived with her.
Happy birthday, Grandma. One of my favorite memories was back when I was dating Sarah. I would go over there to see her some evenings, and there would be a nice dinner set for me, and I was always welcomed as family. And one of the things I love dearly about my wife is that she has those same qualities of welcoming guests as family, and no one leaves hungry.
The other favorite memory that I have is back in college, I inherited an illegal pet. And when my RA found out about it, I called up Grandma, and she didn't even hesitate. She said, sure, bring that baby squirrel over here. And so she took care of it and really fed it from a syringe and renamed her Nefertiti because she thought she needed a pretty name, and found a wildlife rehabilitator. All of that just because to Grandma, you do anything for family, even take in an orphan squirrel. So I love that about Grandma. So I hope you have a wonderful, happy birthday, and I hope you know that we love you very much.
Happy birthday, Grandma.
So some of my favorite memories with Grandma are probably just getting to go on vacation with them and take the campers. And I remember we went to Pennsylvania and like North Dakota, and just getting to go with them and travel with them. Those are some of my favorite memories. Oh, and Disney World. Grandma and Grandpa at Disney World. That was fun. One of the things that I remember from when I was little, one time we were shopping somewhere, and Grandpa had bought Grandma this little Canada Goose stuffed animal, and I didn't know it was supposed to be a surprise. And he came out, and I came out first, and I said, oh, Grandpa just bought you the cutest goose. And it was supposed to be a surprise, and when Grandpa came out and gave it to her, she still acted like she was surprised and never said that I'd given away the surprise. And one of my favorite things that Grandma said that I think about when I need to laugh was for Em's wedding. Em said, well, Grandma, who do you want to walk you down the aisle at the wedding? And Grandma said, well, I suppose Carl, because he's the oldest, but John does do my taxes. So that was just a funny thing that Grandma said. But that's it. Happy birthday, Grandma. We love you.
Hi, Grandma. I have so many fond memories of the time that we shared together with both you and Grandpa. But I think some of my favorite memories are of the summers when I got to come up and spend a week with both of you for Vacation Bible School. It was so nice to have that 1 week where I got to spend just one-on-one time with the both of you, and got to share those memories and that time together, and just frankly feel the love of just the three of us together. And I think it was during one of these times, I believe, when I have one of the funniest memories of you, Grandma, when poor Grandpa, he was back at the computer, and apparently he was not moving nearly as quickly as you had wished. And I very vividly remember you standing in the kitchen, walking through the dining room, down the hallway towards the computer room, going, Donald! 4-letter explicit word, or get off the pot! And bless that man's soul, he got off that computer, and we moved on and did whatever we needed to do. But I remember standing in the living room, wide-eyed, open mouth, going, oh my goodness, did Grandma just say that? And even though that's probably one of the funniest memories I have, it's not by any means the only memory I have. I think probably the overall or my best memories that I have of being at Grandma and Grandpa's house is just the excitement of going and the love and the care that I knew would be there when I got there, and the excitement of seeing my cousins and the rest of my family when I got to Grandma and Grandpa's house, and knowing that I was going to be surrounded by my loving family and tons of food. So if you left hungry, it was by far your own fault. Those are my favorite memories of you, Grandma.
So my favorite memory was actually my first memory of you, Grandma. Was the first time that I actually was invited to a Stone family gathering. And I remember being extremely nervous. I was scared out of my mind. And I usually don't get nervous when meeting people for the first time like that. But I had heard rumors of the size of the Stone family and all of the food that would be there and all the fellowship and all of that. So I was really scared. But as soon as I walked through that door, the first person to come up to me was you, Grandma Stone. You came up to me and you gave me the biggest hug and welcomed me to the family, to the gathering, and it just made me feel so welcome, and I felt relaxed at that point. And it was a very touching moment for me. It was at that moment that I knew that this family was something special. Something else that I wanted to mention is another memory of mine that has taken place here recently. Over the past 4 or 5, it seems like 6 years, when I've been going to school, we've been working full time. Obviously, we have kids, and it's been a very stressful time for us. And one thing that has helped us get through all of those stressful times were the times that we would come visit the Stone family during gatherings and things like that. But in particular, Grandma, you would come up to me all the time, and the more times that this happened, the better it was. But you would come up to me all the time. You'd give me a big hug, and in my ear, you would whisper how proud of me you were. And that was something that helps more than you'll ever know. So that's pretty special to me, and that's something that I'll always hold in my heart. So I guess with that, the only thing left to say is happy birthday, Grandma.
Happy birthday, Grandma. We love you.
I love calling Grandma because I love how she answers the phone. Hello. Doesn't she do that every time? One of my favorite memories of growing up and going over to Grandma and Grandpa's house was that every time we went over there, I would ask her to make macaroni and cheese. And it was so good, and it was just the normal Kraft box, and I never understood why hers was so much better than Mom's. But then I figured out as an adult that it was that way because she was putting in a whole stick of butter. So that would tend to make macaroni and cheese better. I also have really great memories of going camping with Grandma and Grandpa, and their camper would be right next to ours, and it was so much fun. It was way more fun every time if Grandma and Grandpa were there. But one of my favorite quotes from Grandma was when I was helping her hang up clothes in her room, and I realized that the shirts were facing different ways on each of the hangers, and I said, "Oh, Grandma, is that gonna bother you?" And she said, "Honey, I raised 6 kids. I'm just happy if clothes are hung in the closet."
Well, I would like to say I have more memories with Grandma, but I would say the biggest thing is probably the first time meeting Grandma was not exactly what I was expecting, just because I was lucky enough to have 3 little ones new to the family, kind of take the pressure off of me a little bit. But getting to know Grandma throughout the years, being married to Emily, has really been a blessing, and I'm very thankful to have the time to get to know Grandma, get to know her a little bit more, and I'm thankful and honored to be a part of her family, and I'm very appreciative for the family that she's given me to be married into, and I'm very appreciative to celebrate her 90th birthday with her, and more to come.
Happy birthday,
Happy birthday,
Grandma.
Grandma. We love
you.
Hey Grandma, it's Alex. I haven't had as many years to accumulate memories like the rest of my stone cousins, but I know whenever I see you, I'm guaranteed a huge loving bear hug. My first memory of you is of my mom and John's wedding, and you and Grandpa were so cool, calm, and collected. Everybody else was running around like chickens with their head cuts off. The second memory I had was probably Indiana, I think it was a state park, and all I remember was after your big bear hug, Matt and I was running around the park grounds, the swimming pool, possibly chasing girls. But now I'm 30 years old, I haven't seen you in a while, and I'm married, and so on that note, I'd like to introduce my loving wife, Claire. Grandma Stone, this is Claire, my wife.
Hey, Grandma Stone.
And we're so sad that we're unable to come up there and see you for your 90th birthday, so we're sending you lots of love from Raleigh, North Carolina. Happy birthday! Hey Grandma Stone, it's Alex again. I almost forgot the most important member of the family. Come here, Banks. This is our bloodhound, Banks. He's 125 pounds. I got him for bear hunting and deer hunting, but Claire quickly made him into a house dog. So we went from a queen bed to a king bed, and he sleeps with us every night. But he sends his love. See you, Grandma.